December 1945. In a prison cell in Tokyo, surrounded by the ruins of a fallen empire, Admiral Takahara wrote what he would never have dared say during the war. Japan, he realized, had been fighting something far bigger than the United States military. It had been fighting America's factories, workers, oil, and steel. And in that kind of war, they never stood a chance. Tokyo lay in ruins, firebombed by waves of B-29s that flew farther, carried more, and came in numbers Japan couldn't even imagine building. Outside Sugamo prison, massive American warships lay at anchor, machines of war larger and more advanced than anything Japan had ever dreamed of. Inside, former naval officers gave testimony not just of military defeat, but of economic fantasy. Japan hadn't just lost a war. It had wagered everything on a fight it was never equipped to win. Some had seen the truth coming. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, who studied in the United States, had returned in the 1920s with a warning. Japan could not match America's industrial power. He wrote, "Anyone who has seen the auto factories of Detroit and the oil field of Texas knows we lack the strength for a naval race." But his warnings fell on deaf ears. Japan's military leadership believed in the strength of spirit, in discipline, in tradition. They believed those qualities would outweigh steel and fuel. But numbers don't lie. In 1941, the United States produced over 19 million tons of steel. Japan produced less than 6. America refined more than 4 million barrels of oil per day. Japan had access to barely 55,000. American factories trained thousands of pilots, rolled out thousands of aircraft, built ships in weeks that took Japan months. One American aircraft factory had more workers than Japan's entire aircraft industry combined. The attack on Pearl Harbor seemed at first like a great Japanese triumph. Battleships sunk, planes destroyed. But what Japan failed to destroy was more important. The oil tanks, the submarine base, the repair yards. Pearl Harbor was not the heart of the American Navy. It was one of many hearts. Each U.S. naval base on the West Coast could match or exceed Japan's largest. The attack had awakened a sleeping giant, and now that giant was building. At the Battle of Coral Sea, Japan damaged the USS Yorktown. Based on their own standards, they assumed it would take months to repair. Instead, American workers rebuilt it in 72 hours. 3 days later, it was back in action at Midway. There, Japan lost 4 fleet carriers and over 100 elite pilots, losses it would never recover. America, meanwhile, was already producing a new class of carriers. By war's end, it would build over 140. Japan would build just 17. Guadalcanal was the breaking point. Japan and the U.S. both lost ships, but only one could replace them. Japanese destroyers burned precious fuel to deliver 240 tons of supplies. American Liberty ships, mass-produced at a rate of 3 per day, delivered over 10,000 tons in a single voyage. One Liberty ship did the work of 40 Japanese destroyer runs. Japanese soldiers starved while American troops complained about too much spam. The numbers only grew more lopsided. In March 1943 alone, the U.S. built 7,200 aircraft, 18,000 engines, and trained 12,000 pilots. Japan managed just 650 planes and 300 pilots. Rear Admiral Takagi, upon seeing these numbers, admitted, "If they're even half true, we are already defeated." They were not half true, they were conservative. Then came the B-29s, technological marvels that cost more than entire Japanese government buildings. Nearly 4,000 were built. Each contained tens of thousands of precision parts Japan couldn't manufacture. A single raid over Tokyo in March 1945 destroyed 16 square miles of city. That one mission dropped more bombs than the entire Japanese Air Force had in its inventory. At Okinawa, the final proof of American supremacy arrived. The U.S. invasion fleet included 1,457 ships, more than Japan had operated in its entire history. Kamikaze attacks sank 36 vessels. Every one was replaced within 60 days. Japan's entire navy had only 11 destroyers left. America brought over 100 just for escort duty. American submarines wiped out 60% of Japan's merchant fleet, while Japanese subs, lacking air conditioning and modern food storage, could barely function. By 1945, U.S. submarines had sunk 4.8 million tons of Japanese shipping. Japan's shipyards couldn't replace even a tenth of that. The U.S. built more cargo ships in a month than Japan built during the entire war. The final figures told the whole story. America produced over 324,000 aircraft. Japan built just over 76,000. America trained 250,000 pilots. Japan, just 45,000. America spent $341 billion on the war. Japan's entire GDP in 1941 was $7 billion. The war had always been unwinnable. Japan had brought courage to a fight that demanded capacity. They brought swords to a factory fight. And yet, in defeat came transformation. The same officers who documented Japan's industrial inferiority helped rebuild their nation using what they had learned. With the help of American experts like Edwards Deming, Japan embraced quality control and mass production. By the 1960s, Japan was producing cars and electronics that rivaled America's. By the 1980s, it had become a global economic power, achieving through peace what it failed to achieve through war. The Pacific War wasn't decided by courage alone. It was decided by numbers, by oil, steel, logistics, and workers. America didn't just outfight Japan, it outbuilt it. In 4 simple words lay the truth behind the entire war.